Good morning, Anchor. How great is it that we get to be in community together and worship this morning. I'm very excited to be able to sing with you all this morning. And also, we have Caleb with us today. I'm so excited to be able to do the cello. It's such a beautiful instrument. So, let me please stand and join us this morning as we worship the God who gives grace and joy and peace and love and all those wonderful things. Um, yeah, worship with us, please. Lord, I find you in the sea. You, Lord, I find in the down. And to know you is to love you and to know so little else I need you. Oh, oh, how I need you. Oh, how I need you in the secret, Lord, in the doubt, there's no use to love you and to know so little else I you. Oh, I want you. Oh, I want you. Lord, I find you in the morning, Lord, I see every day. Make my life before your blood. You, oh, I want you. Oh, I want you. Night glorious light, I will go and shine. Bring the dawn, break the sky, make the way right before me. In your light, I will shine. Be all I need is you. Night glorious light, I will go and shine. Bring the dawn, break the sky, make the way right before me. In your light, I will find only be all I need is you. Oh, I like you. Oh, I like you. Oh, I like you. Oh, I like you. Amen. Cheerleaders this morning. Okay, and verses 3 to 6, Paul's thanksgiving. I think, my God, I request for you, for you have been my partner. I pray that your love will overflow more and more, and that you will keep on growing in us. Just as Heavenly Father. We're going to be singing 1, 2, and 5, and then repeating 1. I'll repeat that as we go, though, because that's a lot of things to remember. Also, the last line of verse 5 is there's a lot of lines and whatnot. We're not going to do it, okay? So, sing ever, only, all believe. Okay? For all that. We'll take a quiz later. Take my life and let it be constant praise and glory to thee. Take my moments and my days, let them grow in Jesus' grace. Let them grow in Jesus' grace. Take my hands and let them move as the impulse of thy love. Take my feet and let them be swift and beautiful for me. Swift and beautiful for me. Take my love, my Lord, I pour at thy feet its treasure store. Take myself and I will be ever only out for thee. Ever only out for thee. Take my life and let it be consecrated for to thee. Take my moments and my days, let them flow with Jesus' grace. Let them flow with Jesus' grace. It's good to give our also, we prepare ourselves for our lives that we really don't want to think. This is we get to participate in this. So we are also consecrated to a overhaul. Right? Things are going to be changing, and so we'll come back in. This is the opportunity that we get. Because I think praise and for transition. Jesus, we thank you and we thank you that we get to live a creation. Jesus would also be in the summer as we come into this transformative coming in our heart. Thank you that we have the space that comes that we worship out. That we are friends and neighbors quite ready to come to the God of creation, there was the sun, for the beginning of time. No point of breath, spoke to the dark, flesh of the wonder of life. And as you see, a hundred years galaxies before, and the vapor of bright planets soar. The stars are made to worship so high. I can see your heart in everything you play. Every burning star is in your fire of grace. Creation sings to praise you so high. Not only God, don't speak in vain, syllable empty or born. Once you have told, nature and silence follow the sound of your voice. And as you speak, a hundred million creatures catch your breath. You find me in the pursuit of what you say. The only future so high. I can see your heart in everything you say. Everything that's got the canvas of your grace. Creation still raises so high. The stars were made to worship so high. The mountains found together so high. The oceans roll with so high. When everything exists to lift you high, so high. The windows break you stand so high. The rocks cry out inside so high. The sorrows of reasons to fall shy. And we sing again our heart in time. God of salvation, she's on my heart, all of my feelings and time. When you're in the air, light up the way, now you belong to God. And as you see, the heart you feel is here. We run to run to our divine here. Left the rest behind, so bright. I can see, Lord, everything you've done. Every God design, what the world. Let me just surrender so right. I can see your everything away. Every precious one shining light to see. Against the lights of love so bright. But you again 100 million times. For the measure good and mighty your kingdom. I can't believe the world behind. Praise God from whom all blessings flow. Praise Him, all creatures here below. Praise Him, Mother, green and evil. Praise Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. Amen. You may be seated as our kids come forward for the kids' blessing today. Kids, last week, you guys did such a great job. We were talking about serving and how we can serve each other in our church. And you guys did such an amazing job after the service, taking the Bibles upstairs. Hey kids, I was here after the service. Hey kids, can you help again do that? You guys are going to take the hymnal, and guess what else you get to take upstairs? What? The pew cushions. What? How fun is that going to be? Fun! So fun. I know. So fun. So thank you guys for serving. Thank you for showing up, for being here, for helping us see joy as we're talking about this pursuit of joy and happiness in our life. And thank you that you guys also help and lead in worship. So whenever you guys are ready, girls and guys, if you would say, "The Lord be with you," and we'll respond as a congregation and also with you. And also with you. Enjoy your kids' free time. Well, Dan walked into a thrift store, and he loved to try to find old antiques that he could maybe get a good deal on. So as he was walking through this thrift store, he was like looking at different things and kind of eyeing some different things that he might like to pick up. And in the corner, he saw a piano, a beautifully restored piano. And all the wood had been restored. They had done a beautiful job of making the wood come alive. It was absolutely brilliant. And he asked the owner, he said, "Well, how much is the piano?" She said, $100. He was like, $100? And so he was like, "This is amazing." So he went over to inspect it a little bit more. And as he lifted up the cover, he found that it was empty. There was no keys, there was no strings, nothing. It was empty. On the outside, it was a beautiful shop. On the inside, it was empty. In the series, Pursuit of Happiness, this is not a series to slap on a happy face while feeling empty. It's a series to invite us into a celebration that Holy Spirit is in our lives and creating a melody of joy and happiness in our lives, because that is who God is. That is a character of who God is. As we wrap up this series today, Father God, we praise you and thank you.
opportunity to open up your hands. I pray that each of us sitting here has an opportunity to get you into this. But our hearts do not just be a brilliant shell sitting here, all sorts of different just speak to God out the full of our belly of have your Bibles, as I hope you do today. You can open to the book of Philippians, which is towards the back of your Bible. This is a 4-chapter letter that Paul wrote while he was in prison, and we're going to look back over where we've been this last spring, looking at this little book of great joy. Pursuit of happiness and the celebration, we're going to remind where we have been. The purpose of the book of Philippians was again to remind those that were faithful 10 years later to say, thank you for continuing to walk with me. Thank you for continuing to be a part of ministry. 10 years later, Paul writes this letter of encouragement. And what it does is it's giving this opportunity to talk about what is our mindset of joy, looking at gratitude, encouragement towards others, and shifting our mindset from fear and anxiety to joy. This is kind of what we've been looking at this over the last 7 weeks together. So we're going to do just a little tidbit of all these different places where we've been, and then we're going to wrap it all up with one more invitation for you today. So in Philippians 1, we looked a little bit at the background of who Paul was writing to. Again, Paul is on these missionary journeys, and he went around to all these different churches because he wanted to spread the word of the good news. Jesus, before he ascended into heaven, said, go and tell everybody. Tell people in Jerusalem, and Judea, and Samaria, and even to the ends of the earth. So Paul takes that seriously, and he boards a ship, and he starts going around to all these different places and telling the good news and planting churches everywhere he went. One of those places was Philippi. If you've been here with us, you know that this is not a part of his plan, okay? This is not something that he was planning on doing. He was about to board the ship, and he asked Holy Spirit, hey, I want to make sure that we're heading in the right direction. They were coming from the east, they were heading west, and the Holy Spirit said, nope, you're not good. They were heading north. Holy Spirit said, nope, you're not going to go north. So Paul says, all right, turn the ship around. So they start going south. Holy Spirit says, not that way either. And then so they came from the east, one way to go, they started going west. And as they go west, Paul has this dream of a man from Macedonia. So when he gets to Philippi, he's assuming that he's going to meet this man, right? He gets to Philippi. Is there a man there? No, there's not a man there. He goes and he tries to find a synagogue. In Jewish culture, you had to have 10 different male Jewish leaders to be able to have a synagogue. They didn't have that in Philippi. And so Paul's kind of trying to figure out what to do. He takes this long walk along the river and he finds these women having a prayer service. One of those women is Lydia. And as he talks to them and they continue to understand who Jesus is, she's baptized and this small church starts. And they start doing ministry in this little city of Philippi. Well, one of the things that they do is there's this girl that they cast out demons from. Thank the Lord, that's an amazing thing, a miraculous thing, but her owners were not so happy. And what happens is Paul and Silas get thrown into jail. So they're in jail. Basically, wherever Paul went, he gets thrown into jail. So it's kind of like Paul them out, right? So he's in jail, and he thinks, hey, Silas, why don't we start singing some songs, right? I mean, if you're in jail, that's probably what you think. Like, let's sing some songs together, right? There's an earthquake that happened. The jailer comes up. He's about to take his life, and he's like, no, we need to tell you about Jesus. And all of a sudden, the jailer also becomes a part of this church, and Paul and Silas are free. This is the church that he's now writing to 10 years later to say thank you for continuing to walk with me in ministry. Be encouraged. You're reminded of what God's doing in your life, and you're reminded that God is continuing to spread the good news. Continue to spread the good news. And he starts off with grace and peace to you. When we looked at Philippians 1, we talked about this idea of encouragement. That so many of the other letters of Paul, they're a little reprimanding, right? It's like, hey, make sure you're not doing this, make sure you're not doing this. Philippians is just about joy. It's just about encouragement. And so we looked at this first chapter of Philippians a few weeks ago. We asked people to tell other people what it means to thank them for who they are in their life. I asked Luke and Cheryl to come forward, and they gave a letter of encouragement to a very important person in their lives. And we saw that happen. We saw that play out and happen. Luke talked to Becky, and Cheryl talked to Jesse. There's an opportunity for them to say, thank you for who you are in my life. Thank you for walking alongside. Because it brought that letter to life, right? This is what Paul is saying to these dear beloved. Thank you for walking alongside. And then I gave the invitation to pick up the phone and to talk to people. Pete wrote me later that week and said, thank you so much for that invitation. I don't think I would have done it without it. And this is the purpose of Philippians. That Paul is saying 10 years later, thank you for reminding us. Thank you for reminding us of what it means to live this life of the good news. And so all through the series, we kept giving invitations to actually live that out. And you guys did a beautiful job of that. Then we moved to Philippians 2, where we talked about cheering one another on. If you were here for that Sunday, I had all the kids come up here, and we had two girls do a run race down the middle aisle, and they came back. And the very first time, up on the screen, it said silent, like, please don't say anything, okay? And we had to run down and run back. And they were fine, and they did a fine job, right? The second time we had them do it, I put up on the screen, cheer as loud as you can, stand up, start like just applauding these girls, and all of a sudden, as they're running back towards me, I mean, the elation on their face was undeniable. It was so fun because we love being cheered on, right? And we also love being the cheerers. We also love cheering one another on. And Paul does this all through the book of Philippians. How do we cheer one another on? Because Jesus cheered those people on as he walked. He performed miracles. He had these amazing teachings. He transformed gallons of water to dust off the bottom in the wine cellar kind of wine. Jesus created a little boyish generosity. He transformed storms and innovations. So we asked the question, what does it look like to live a life of celebration, to rejoice? Even when it's hard. And these were things that were hard. In a wedding, to run out of wine, that is a disaster. Jesus shows up with all these people be sitting here on the mountainside and for them not to have anything to eat, talk about hangry, right? And so Jesus says, hey, let's transform this situation. And so how do we bring joy? In this moment, we talked about God transforming lives and inviting us to be like kids, that kids laugh more than 400 times a day. Adults, 15, maybe. That's so sad, okay? So I have an invitation that week to laugh as much as you possibly can, to be like kids and to find laughter in our lives. Not again because life is always easy, but because God walks alongside us in each of the moments and gives us a mindset shift to be able to live a life. And then we looked at Philippians 3. And I asked the question, maybe can you see more hurts in your life, okay? We talked about Honda Pilots and how maybe I had never knew what a Honda Pilot was until you wanted to buy one. And then all of a sudden they were all over the streets. And I was like, where did all these Honda Pilots come from? But it was because I was looking at things differently. And so we then give an invitation to look for hurts all around, like look for hurts in the sky, look for hurts in a puddle, look for hurts in a rock. And Dave Ocker gave me a rock. Can you just hold that one up? He gave me a rock that just said, hey, I've been holding on to this rock that looks like a heart. I would love to bless you with it. And so it's on my desk in my office as a visual reminder of how can I make sure to live a life of joy. Live a life of joy. And then we talked about where are we now and where we want to be. And you came in on the porch, there's all these different images that you could pick up a card and say, hey, here's where I am now. And then this image is where I want to be. And it's fine and dandy to say, hey, this would be great if this is the image of where I want to be. But how in the world do we get there? And so we talked about that bridge of how to get there. Of what does that look like from now and to where we want to be. And we talked about baseball diamonds and our purpose of intentionally living out our life with Christ. Finding intention and purpose, a way of living, to see more hearts. We talked about Eric in his bathroom. He has these 3 rocks in the bathroom. It's a visual reminder for him and then for me every time I walk in there to be able to say, hey, here's a heart underneath those rocks. And what does it mean to every single day while he's getting ready to be reminded, hey, how can I show love to other people today? Again, the purpose of this book, reminders. Visual reminder now. Now we move into the last chapter of Philippians. In the whole letter, when they received this letter, This is what it would have been like. So someone in there, they would have been gathering together in their church. Someone would have come in and said, guess what? We have a letter from Paul, the pastor who started this church. We haven't heard from him in a while. We've been hearing different things. Now we have his word, and I'm going to read it to you. And so in a church service, they would do this. They would start from the very beginning and read all the way through. Now, when you got to chapter 4, it talks about two ladies that are having a cat fight. That would not be so great. That'd be a little bit awkward, right? All of a sudden, if Kelly and Sheriff, I was like, hey girls, you've been fighting a little bit, and I'd like you to kind of take it easy. I mean, that's exactly what was happening, okay? In a church service, these two ladies are called out. For all of eternity, we have these two ladies' names. Not how I would like to remember. But Paul says, what does it look like? You girls do it. No problems there. All right. So, but what does it look like for us instead of running away from conflict to run into relationships with each other? And we look at the acronym of RUN: rejoice, unreasonable, and no worries. Rejoicing, thinking the best in someone, and unreasonable hospitality. We had Oprah moments of handing out pens and gift cards and affirmation like confetti. It was a fun thing. And then we talked about no worries. Again, not this idea of don't worry, be happy, but how do we actually find no worries in our life? All in chapter 4 is talking about. And so we said, great, to say awesome. It's really hard that we live in a culture always say, and it would be great to have a peace, but how we get there? Talks about prayer, and again, that's easy to say, how we actually. So then I invite you to take your medicine. The spiritual vitamins, one in the morning and one at night. Someone sent me a picture this last week that, hey, my kids are listening, and they had a picture that this person, a student, had written out every single morning beginning with prayer. Thank you for living out this year. Thank you for what it has meant to us. Last week we talked about what it meant to live generously, to be a God, good work. People presenting God's. I hope this week that you had some opportunities. Secrets of living is. So that's where we've been. And again, I really hope this series, because of who we are as individuals and also as a church, and how do we keep on living that as we move into our summer series of wonder. I want us to just camp out a little bit in this idea of Philippians 4:4, and then going all the way back to the beginning of the book. So Philippians 4:4, it says, be joyful always. And again, this in the original language was plural and in community, and it's actually a command. It's a command to be happy. Paul's saying, be happy. And again, not an opportunity of just like, hey, I don't care how you feel, just slap on a smile. That's not what Paul's saying here. What he's saying is it's a choice. Your decision to be joyful is your choice. It's deciding how we are going to look at life. It's a command. Joy doesn't simply happen to us. We have the opportunity to choose it every single day. Philippians 4:4 says, rejoice in Jesus. Again, I say rejoice. Rejoice is a choice. Reminder of Jim Quick, New York Times bestseller. He says, life is a seed between B and D. B being birth, D being death, and C being choice. We're going to choose to live. So Paul time and time again, 16 as a choice to live your life. You're going to choose, even when it is hard. To count it all joy. And I mean all joy, right? Because it would have been really easy to throw in a towel and say, I'm done, God. Like, this is just too much. Every place I go, I'm thrown into prison. Every single time I try to tell you good news, I may be stoned to death or almost to death or beaten up on all these different types of things. He just says, but still, I'm going to count it all joy. Because again, Paul's writing this letter. Anyone remember where he's writing this letter in? Prison. He's writing this letter in prison, okay? Nothing speaks joy like prison, right? Okay? But here we find Paul, his mantra, choose joy. He wanted to get the news of Jesus to the ends of the earth. Again, Christ commanded, go into all the earth, Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and to the ends of the earth. So Paul tries to do that. He gets on a ship and he starts going to all these different towns and telling people about the good news. But he knows that the ultimate place to go is Rome. Because if you get to Rome, that is like the hub of news. Anything happens in Rome, and guess what? It's all over to the ends of the earth, right? So Paul's thinking, how do I get to Rome? So as he goes to all these different places, he's thinking, okay, I've got to continue to tell the good news. We're going to plant these churches, we're going to encourage these people, but how am I going to get it to the hub of culture? And here's what he does. So he's on trial, and he's a Roman citizen. He says, hey, guess what? If I'm a Roman citizen, I can appeal to Caesar. And so he goes to the officials and he says, I'm a Roman citizen, I'd like to appeal to Caesar. So guess where they ship him? Rome. On Rome's dollar, not on the church's dollar, right? Paul's smart, right? So he says, live life generously, but also live life smart, okay? Like, if you can get to Rome by Rome's dollar, that's amazing. Is he on trial? Yes, but he still continues to count it all joy. He says, this is my opportunity to actually get it into Rome, to be able to get the good news to Rome. And as he's talking to the Philippians, time and time again, he talks about Caesar's household and the palace guards. And I love this idea because I can just imagine that it's like when we sit here and we had our Blessed series and we wrote down names of people on our Blessed series of who we would love to know Jesus Christ. This is what was happening in the churches in Philippi, in Corinthians, all these different places, okay? And so as he's in Philippi, my guess is someone said, wouldn't it be amazing if this good news could get to Caesar's household? And someone probably went like, that's crazy. Like, that's just absolutely crazy. We're a little town in Philippi. How could it possibly get to Rome? How could it possibly get to Caesar's household? And Paul here in chapter 4 and verse 22 says, we've done it. Your prayers have been answered. When you asked and you thought was impossible, God is working miraculous things. He had no idea how we were going to do it, but God did it. And he found a way. Not in a way he would have wanted or asked for. God found a way. So as Paul is in this prison and he's chained to these palace guards, where are they from? Caesar, 24 hours a day. He's chained to these guards on 6-hour shifts. Hey, do you know Jesus? I mean, I'm sure that's all he asked time and time again, right? And so he would tell these miraculous stories and he'd invite them in on what it means to live this kind of adventurous life, following after God. Not that it will always be easy, but that you can choose joy, to count all joy, choice. So that's how Paul ends his letter. We're going to go back to the very beginning to wrap up his 1, 3, and 4. He says again, every time I think of you, I give. Paul is choosing to remember the best. He's choosing to remember the best. Again, these are people that threw him in jail. These are the people when he wasn't planning to go there. When he went to go there, he thought something was going to happen totally different than what he expected. And he still is choosing to remember the best. And as he writes this letter 10 years ago, he reminds him, thank you for locking the arms. Thank you for helping me to Paul first arrives in Philippi, he meets a small group of people, and he continues to build them up. And then now, 10 years later, is writing this letter. He says, Philippians 1, verse 5, he says, you've been my partners in ministry, spreading the good news about Christ from the time you first heard it until now. Spreading the what? Spreading the good news. Not the bad news, not the mediocre news, but the best news on the planet. Okay, the best news on the planet. Paul's saying, you guys have been partners with me. Thank you for that. In our life now that we believe in a God who has risen from the dead, who died for all of our sins, rose from the dead, and say, you now get to go tell the good news. You now are my messengers. Is this the way we live? When we go to school, do people know that? When we go into our workplaces, do people know that? When we walk into a coffee shop, do the way that we talk to the barista, do they know that? Do they know that we choose joy? Do they know that we have an amazing message of not good news, but life-changing, transforming great news? That's me. This is what Paul reminded me. Not that life is always easy. I know that. And sometimes it's fun, right? But Paul says, you have the best news. You have the best news. Now that life is not easy. Again, this wasn't a series to ask for unhappy face. To invite you to the soundtrack of God's abundant grace and mercy. Not that we are perfect yet, In Philippians 1:6, it says that we are continuing to live. And God, who began a good work within you, will continue his work until it is finally finished on the day when Christ returns. Guess what? That's not now, right? That's our entire life. I love when we get to say, what does it mean for us to follow after God? That God says, you're mine. And he claims us. Then he puts a sign on us that says, I'm with you. So we're always learning. We're always growing. And sometimes when we go into the coffee shop, the barista won't know that we right? Because we probably had a really what does it look like for us? A man walked into an art museum. There's a canvas that was all white, with an orange circle at the top and a blue line along about third of the way up the canvas. And he knew that this artist was really popular and that he was going to gain a lot of money from this piece of art. And so the man kind of walked over and scoffed and was like, well, I could do that. And the artist said, well, what makes you think it's done? And in process. Work that God has in our lives to be Lord, calls me to continue to live. Continuing to learn. Just like last week, I saw a scary movie, lifted up his feet. Right? He saw a scary movie, lifted up his feet. He had to rewire his brain. Tony retraining his mind to not scarcity but abundance. This idea of unreasonable hospitality. Bogadera says, unreasonable hospitality, it actually takes sacrifice. It takes time. It actually isn't fun. It requires us to try hard. It requires us to try hard. We are under receiving. He's reminded of those that we live with that good. We are at the beginning of June. Sometimes in January we set intention for how to live, and I ask the year and we put intention for the years in a row. June is the midpoint of the year. And so when we get this opportunity in June to say, what's it look like? What's the year going to look like? Where have we come from? How has that been going? And then what is the kind of the bridge for us in June for what the rest of the year is going to look like? What is our one word? Have we lived into that? And do we put down our whole thing, our purpose, and we're living into that? Living lives of hospitality, whatever life we describe, gives us an opportunity to do just that. Next week, we're going to move over to Covenant Harbor. We're going to look at preparing our hearts for 1 week in between before we start to one rhythm of stuff. It will look like us to at John 21 of rest. So wrapping up this, is I love this idea of Philippians 1, chapter 1, verse 9. I pray that your love will overflow more and more, and that you will keep on growing in knowledge. The series is coming to a close. It doesn't mean you have to get a chance every single day. That's C, E, and D. To choose joy. Well, the man walked into the antique store and he saw this. He lifted it. He was very shocked to see that there was inside. So then he thought, I think I've never wanted a piano before, but now he was all of a sudden intrigued. Like, what does it really take to create a piano? Well, I did my own research this week, and I looked at the Steinway pianos and how they create those pianos. Now, that is top of the line, okay? But it is incredible to see how these pianos are crafted. Over 200 craftspeople created it takes to create one of these instruments. When they decide to do the rim, they take that beautiful curvature of the rim, and after they put it around and they attach it to the main piano, they let it rest for 100 days. Let it rest for 100 days so that it can really keep that shape. I love that idea. What does it mean that sometimes God invites us into a season of rest? Then, once the keys are put on, they bring it to the pounding room. And each of the keys are played 3,200 times. 3,200 times, because when they want it, when it gets to the owner, it has a certain feel to it. Simon has an absolutely very interesting, and always make sure that they have the exact same feel. Sometimes in life, We need that rest. Sometimes it feels weird. Life is weird. I'm not sure how we're going to do it. I'm still here. They're going to be a joy. As they create outside of the piano and as they play on the keys, past part is the sound. They call it a soul. They want it to be a certain richness and that's what I think the richness of to go about each and being for us, for all. For the last few weeks, as we went to Central Denison, we got to see a friend. She was teaching there. She was doing a substitute teaching. And Lissy, every single day we'd be able to come to her, and she just had the most amazing smile on her face. And she just made it joyful for us. Sometimes we'd have a hard morning. Sometimes we'd be rushing around. As soon as we got to that door, Lissy would just have a smile on her face and welcome us. Hey, Pastor. And every time she'd see us, she'd be like, hey, you know, I'm Pastor. And one day there was a little girl and she was coming out of her car and she was just having a really hard moment and she looked up at us and she said, I'm really anxious and so there's something around her. She met her in a moment. And then she watered her eyes with joy from her car. This is Christ. Everyone walked out of the house. I'm not sure today. It's all the things. He's on the he walks. She said, thank you that you lead us in all things. That you invite us to this all of you. You say, come on in and find your place. With us in find. As we have been over this last even little book, and this is the temple of meditation. So whatever real piece that you heard today, just tuck away. Be able to write it down somewhere and turn it in your mind. We have the honor and privilege to come to the Lord's table. This is a feast that Jesus was having in great celebration. It was during the Passover feast. And the Passover feast was one that they just had an incredible time to. It was one that would just linger into the night. If you had a dinner party and you had friends over and you're just enjoying sharing story, we had one of these this last week celebrating somebody's birthday, just sharing a story and thanking God for food they had brought into our lives. This is that kind of feast of remembering. And Jesus, as he was sitting around with his disciples, they were probably telling stories of Passover, God's faithfulness and gratitude in their own lives. And then Jesus starts saying some things that seem kind of weird. He's saying, like, this is me, my body, which is broken for you, my blood, which is poured out for you. And they're like, time out. Like, what in the world, right? Because Passover is when we celebrate that the blood was shed so that our people were free. And Jesus is changing it. Saying, from here on out, this is the opportunity for you. Hours later, he was arrested, beaten, and crossed. Then there was 3 days. There's 3 days that waited. My mom sent me something this week of faith is about waiting, right? Our God is a God of waiting. If we had a God of instant gratification, faith wouldn't be necessary, right? He gives us 3 days of silence before he raises him. Silence doesn't mean that God isn't, because obviously God is, but he continues to watch. So Jesus took bread, he broke it, and he said, "This is my body. Give it all of you in remembrance." We know the whole story. An amazing hope. The same way after supper, he took the cup. "This is my blood, which is poured out for you." Give it all of you in remembrance. As often as you eat this food, it's a right way. Do pray with me. Jesus, we praise you and thank you for this invitation, this tangible opportunity. And the bread is broken as you as the was an opportunity to be I come to see not because we lost it, because we not of righteousness, sincerely love Jesus Christ. And not because we are strong, because we have any claim on the grace of God. We stand constantly for this. Ask for things that we have done that have in your way. Also, like the things, ask for the blessing, thank you that you are God. Hands open and ask for your grace. I thank you. We come to the table today to believe in the covenant church. All are invited to the table to proclaim Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior. So you'll see many people of many ages coming to the table saying, "Hey, this is the tangible way for me to be able to proclaim Jesus Christ." If you are not ready to receive communion, you can come forward and say, "I will just go to the blessing this morning." I'll to give you prayer advice. If you are in need of a gluten-free option, you come forward and just say, "If I can have a gluten-free using intention, do a piece of the bread and you can take it." Some families and some friends come together and they take their piece of bread. They take it individually.
Hear the voice of love that's calling. There's a chair that waits for you, and a friend who understands everything over you. You keep standing and keep in the shadows of your shade. There's a light of hope that shines as you come to me. Bring it all to the table. Nothing creates you for. All your tears, all your sorrow, and sadness. When the Savior and God bring it all to the table. You can see the way you play. Be it that for your heart. Through the past you've been forgiven. Your set to love tomorrow. Bring it all to the table. Nothing gets you for. All your triumphs, all your worries, and your words. There's a Savior and the cross. Bring it all to the table. Bring it all. You can bring it all. So come on, take your place. There's no one who's standing away. Holy Spirit, Holy Spirit, come on in and find your grace. Come on in, take your place. There's no one who's standing away. Holy Spirit, Holy Spirit, come on in and find your grace. Bring it all to the table. Nothing is before. All your sin, all your sorrow, your sadness. There's a Savior at the door. Bring it all to the table.
Was a single and control, bring it all to the table. Father God, we praise you and we thank you for this day. Opportunity for us to continue to build our lives. Foundation of your love, your forgiveness, the tangibility of bread, the juice that has an amazing love. May we continue to learn and grow in an abundant way. Praise you and thank you. As would you stand with us as we sing this last song?
Worthy of every song we could ever sing. Worthy of all the praise we could ever bring. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Jesus, the name above every other name. Jesus, the only one we could ever sing. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Oh, we live for you. Holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes and want to show me who you are and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around you. Worthy of every breath we could ever see. Worthy of all the praise we could ever be. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Jesus, the name above every other name. Jesus, the only one who could ever save. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Oh, we live for you. Only there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder. Show me who you are and fill me with your heart and deep. In your love to those around me. I will build my life upon your love. It is a firm foundation. I will put my trust in you alone, and I will not be shaken. I will build my life upon your love. It is a firm foundation. I will put my trust in you alone, and I will not be shaken. Holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder. Show me who you are and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around me. I will build my life upon your love. It is a firm foundation. I will put my trust in you alone, and I will not be shaken.
Lives be built on just that. Bad news, mediocre news. And as we live and tell choose joy and share. Just a moment, I'm going to ask if you can have your hands open as you receive the benediction. But just like last week, thank you so much for those who helped downstairs. We're going to do a little bit of that again as we prepare for changing and transformation in our building. And so if you'd be willing to see Heidi Devoso again on the porch, she's going to hand out little strips of paper. It was so fun last week. People that had never met before were like, hey, you want to come do this together? And it was such a great time of fellowship together. We're going to be up here doing all sorts of different fun activities and serving together. Okay? So if you grab a couple friends and do a small job, kids, if you can help again with the hip meals and all of the pew cushions, Miss Julie is upstairs, ready to receive you, okay? So if you receive this benediction, it's always hard to get that last thing in. All right, here we go. Okay, so you can receive the benediction as we go out to tell the story. I pray that the Lord bless you, and the Lord make his face to shine and be gracious. Or lift up and give you his faith. See you next week at camp. See you next week at camp.